And as promised, it is 11:02, so I am going to go ahead and get started here. So I'm going to start you at the very beginning. We're going to cover basically dotloop basics today. So we're going to start signing into dotloop, making our first loop, how to add clients to that transaction, and then what that looks like moving forward. So what the clients see, how to work with interactive and PDF files, and then ultimately submitting to the office for review. So the screen that we're looking at right now is our dotloop homepage. It's where you're going to go when you go to dotloop.com for the first time. Now, Jonna has provided me with a list of your email addresses. So you do all have accounts created for you on dotloop already. But of course, then the question is how to access these accounts. So there's a couple of ways to do that. You should have received an email that you have an account created for you. You can follow the steps in that email. If you didn't receive the email, not a big deal. You can come directly to dotloop.com and still get into dotloop. So your first option is to come to the sign up for free area here. If you click on that big blue button, you're taken to this page where you can go ahead and just complete the information it's requesting, your full name, the email address that you gave John that then he gave me, and then you can set up a password. Complete, what your role is as an agent, and then what state you're located in. Of course, then when you're good to go, you hit sign up for free, and you'll be taken directly into your company's dotloop account. If that seems like a little too much work for you, totally understand. We also have the option in the upper right-hand corner, my mouse is circling here, that says sign in. If you click on that, of course, I work on Google Chrome, and I have all of my password information saved here to dotloop. But if you don't know your password or if you've never signed in, you can click this forgot your password option here. All then you have to do is provide the email address that's attached to your dotloop account and put in this code here to prove that you're not a robot. Dotloop's going to send you a password reset request via email. We don't have any kind of crazy password requirements. It just needs to be 6 characters and include a number. So pretty consistent across the board there. Since I already have all of my information saved, I'm going to go ahead and sign in. You'll notice here I've signed in. I've got my Agent Plus Realty icon up here in the upper left-hand corner. If you do not see that upon signing in, let John know immediately, and he can let me know so we can make sure you're signing in with the correct email and that you're attached to the company correctly. So that's the first thing you want to make sure you see when you sign in. I will be, of course, kind of going through this training periodically. I'll pause for questions, but I can address questions at any time. So utilizing that chat feature you guys used earlier to let me know that you could hear me and could see me is going to be a great way to ask me any questions that you may have. So let's talk about this Loops homepage here for just a moment. This page is what's going to store your transactions for your time on dotloop. So it's 2016, of course, moving forward in 2020, you'll still have the same access that you'll see here. You'll have all of the loops you've completed in those, 4, 5, 6, 7 years, however many years you're working on dotloop. Now, I know that's a lot of loops. You may not want to see everything. So we do have the ability to filter and kind of sort out what you're seeing. But this page is essentially your filing cabinet. This is what files away all of your prior transactions. That makes the loop itself, so the loop that we're going to create here for a transaction, like that file folder. It's that manila folder that you may be working with now, pen and paper, that you store everything in about the transaction. So all of the documents and contracts, information about your clients, and all of that good stuff. So we're going to go ahead and create our loop here. In order to do so, I'm going to click this big plus sign in the blue circle, and it's going to go ahead and ask me to name my loop. I'm going to name it a property address. And as I start typing, you'll notice we're connected to Google Maps. So what that means is if you add and create the loop with the property address, you can link directly to this property on Google Maps. What's going to happen then is when you hit create loop here in the bottom right corner, you're going to be able to pull in all of the property address information from Google Maps automatically. So you're never going to have to type in that property address information. It's all going to pull into the loop for you. So you'll notice one of the things we're really excited about and really proud of is how much we do autofill. So we autofill with Google Maps. We're going to autofill some of your personal information once you save it. We're going to autofill information in the documents. So we're all about trying to save you guys time and make you more efficient. So I'm going to go ahead here and hit Create Loop. And we're going to take a loop at what that looks like. So I'm basically, by hitting Create Loop, I've opened my Manila file folder, and I'm ready to start adding documents and adding information about my clients. The first section that I see upon opening the loop is our documents section. So this is where all of my documents are going to be stored. If I scroll down here even further, I've got a people section, and then I have a tasks section. So people section, pretty straightforward. I'm, of course, going to be in every loop I create, since these are my transactions, as is the admin for my office. So that would be John. He will be in every loop that you create, so he'll be able to approve your files and make sure everything is running smoothly. The tasks section down here are our interactive to-do lists. So any kind of action items that you may have, if you need to remind your clients to hire a cleaning lady before the open house, or even to simply put the for sale sign in the yard, things along those lines, you can set up a task list for, and you'll be able to receive reminders regarding that. The first thing you want to do upon jumping into a loop is select the transaction type. So we're going to work with a listing today. So if I come down here, I'm going to select listing for sale. These transaction types are pretty straightforward. It's just, what type of transaction you're working with, a purchase or a lease. Maybe it's something special like a foreclosure or an auction, something along those lines. That might be a real estate other. We're going to stick with a listing for sale. Once I do that, the next thing I want to do is select a loop status. So this is just the status of the transaction. And this is something you'll be updating periodically as the transaction progresses. So it's just the status of the transaction. If I just received my clients, maybe it's a pre-listing. If I already have a buyer and it's never going to make it on the MLS, it's a private listing. If it's already on the MLS and I'm ready to receive offers, maybe it's an active listing. Under contract, pretty straightforward, of course, when the property goes under contract. Sold, ideally when the transaction goes through. And archived, if for some reason the offer expires, maybe you lose the clients, anything along those lines, you can archive that loop. We're going to stick with an active listing. I'm ready, it's on the MLS, and I'm probably going to start receiving offers. The next thing I want to do then is jump into the View Details page. And if I scroll through here, I see another People section. So this People section is identical to the People section we looked at previously underneath our list of documents. There I am, and there's my admin. Now you'll notice here it says None underneath my name. The first thing I want to do once I hit that View Details button is assign myself a role. So I need to designate what role I have within this transaction. Since I'm working on a listing, I'm the listing agent. And then when I hit Edit here, you'll notice I'm taken to an Edit Person window. So this information is pulling for me from my settings page. So when you get into dotloop for the first time, dotloop's going to encourage you to complete your account setup all the way. And this is going to be something that you're going to save in is information about yourself so that this autofills for you in every transaction. Otherwise, you're typing the same information about yourself over and over and over again, and that's pretty redundant, right? So we want to save you the time of having to continuously put in the same information. So we do that by pulling this from the My Account Settings page. So I'm going to go ahead and just hit Save. The next thing I want to do while I'm here is add my client. So I'm going to come up here to Add Person. I'm going to hit that, and I'm just going to go ahead and add my client to the loop. All that's required to add a person to a transaction is their full name and email address, so nothing too crazy. And then you need to make sure that they are assigned a role here. So of course I'm working on a listing, I'm the listing agent, and my client is then the seller. Now once again I hit that role, it does expand to this window. You'll notice this window is the same window we just looked at about myself. The remainder of this information is optional when I'm adding my client to the loop. I may know it, I may not. I may want to save it, I may not want to. Again, totally optional, not required to add the client to the loop. What it does do, of course, then, if you do choose to save information in here, is it'll help you autofill. And it's always good to store your client's contact information just so that you can reference it at a later date if you need to reach out to them. The other thing I like to point out in this window is this option over here that my mouse is circling called Add to My Team. It's over here in the upper right corner. So Add to my team is something that you're going to use maybe 1% of the time you're working on dotloop. And it's reserved for people who are working also in real estate and on the same side of the transaction as you. A great example is if I was co-listing this property. So if I had a co-listing agent, I would add her or him to the team so that she could see everything I was doing in the loop. We could both work on documents and correspond with clients if we needed to. But I never, ever, ever want to add my client to the team, nor do I ever want to add the opposing agent, because that team function allows that person to have full editing rights and full access to the loop. So if I added my client, all of a sudden my client could get in there and start changing the contract. And of course, you know, they don't know what they're doing. That's why they have you. So it's important that they're not added to the team. A reason to not add the opposing agent is naturally then if the buying agent was in the loop, they may see what other offers I'm receiving and then base their offer on that. So we definitely want to cut that out. So we're not going to check mark the box here. I'm going to go ahead and hit add person. Now that I've added my client, the next section I'm going to see is the property address. Looks like I must have typed into this because this now says C instead of 8950, which is the property address we're working with. But you'll see Google Maps pulled in the rest of this information for me, my street name, the city, state, zip code, etc. This was already on the MLS. I could add the MLS number in here if I wanted to. Again, the rest of this information is optional to add, but will help you autofill the document. So I recommend putting in as much as you know. I also recommend keeping it as up to date as possible. So at the very beginning of the transaction, we may not know these things. Of course, I may not know the contract agreement date. But as I move through and I do come across this information, I want to make sure I save it in here. I'm going to throw some of these dates in just so that we can take a look at how things are going to autofill. Say it's a 2% referral. Listing date was the 1st. And once I get down to the bottom here, I'm going to go ahead and hit save. So now that I've saved the information that I need in here, I'm going to go ahead and begin adding my documents. So I'm going to hit back to loop. And I'm ready to bring in those interactive forms. In order to do so, I'm going to hit the templates icon here. And then you'll notice I have my Miami forms or I have my Florida Realtor interactive forms. I can choose to add either one of these to my loop. So I'm going to add a couple of listing documents in here. So we'll say, let's see, exclusive right to sell listing agreement. Choose that. And we'll also add an addendum. And we'll add an amendment. Oh. Having some, we'll just add this for the moment. Okay. Once I've selected the 2 documents or however many documents I plan on adding, I'm going to go ahead and hit copy in that window. They're going to copy into the loop for me, and then I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. Now there are a couple of ways I can add or open these documents to begin editing them. You'll see, of course, I have a yellow banner across the top prompting me to go ahead and open both of those forms. I can do that here. I could open them one at a time if I wanted to by clicking directly onto the name of the document, or I have the option of check marking the boxes to the left of the documents that I want to open, and then coming over here to the right-hand corner and choosing any of these options. These options are what I consider bulk options. So anytime I want to print all of the documents in the loop or download multiple documents, I would want to check mark those boxes and then choose an option from this right-hand corner. We're going to go ahead and select Open. Once I open the documents, I'm immediately taken into our autofill window. So this will appear in every document automatically the first time you open it. After the first time, you will have to pull it up manually. I'll show you how to do that in just a moment. The very first section of our autofill window is discussing the roles. So I don't have any buyers in the loop right now, but I do have a seller, and there's my client. If Carol notifies me that maybe her husband Bob needs to be in the loop, I can add him from in here if I need to. There I am as the listing agent. Here's the property address information that pulled. This is information about myself, some financial information, some additional listing information, and information about my seller. Again, anything I save in this window right here also saves to the view details page. So I don't need to worry about saving it 2 places, just one. I'm going to go ahead and hit autofill. If I take a look at this, it'll autofill for me. Anything that highlights in a yellow background is what has been autofilled. dotloop just kind of giving you an indicator. It's not going to stay that way permanently. Once I hit the save button here, it is going to default back to a white background, so it's not going to save with a yellow highlight. I also always like to point out that these fields are still editable. So if I don't enjoy how something autofilled, I could easily add it or edit it in any way. These boxes with the blue outline are text fields or anything that I can fill or check mark or anything along those lines. Things with the salmon color background, like these fields right here, are looking for an initial or a signature. So that looks good. I'm going to scroll down here. Again, I can add any additional information. Maybe I'm going to check mark some boxes, make sure everything looks good, which is awesome. Add this in here, just some numbers, and make any necessary changes that I need. When I get down to the bottom, I'm going to say everything looks good, and I'm going to go ahead and share these documents to my clients for her signature. In order to do so, I'm going to come up here and hit save. And once I do that, you see I have my autofill option here if I needed to bring up that autofill window again. Really easy for me to do, located in that navy blue bar at the very top of the document. In order to share this out, I could share from within the forms here. I have a bright blue share button in the right-hand corner, but there are also a couple of other ways to share the documents on dotloop that I also want to cover. So I'm going to back out of the document for right now. I'm going to go ahead and hit no, I'm not ready to share. And I'm back on my page where I see my list of documents. In this window here, I can share the documents one at a time. Simply by hovering over them, I get the share option. Or I can share them in bulk, again, by checkmarking the boxes and hitting this blue share button on the right. I prefer to share them in bulk because it sends both of the documents to my client, but only provides them with one email, so they're only going to receive one email from me. If I share them one at a time, they're going to receive as many emails as documents that I'm sharing. So they're still going to be able to sign everything, but if I'm sharing 7 documents, they're going to get 7 separate emails instead of just 1. So kind of up to you guys, however you want to share to your clients, but I like to keep it to as few emails as possible. So the share document window is consistent across the board in dotloop. The only thing that's ever going to change is the number of documents that you're sharing. You'll see I'm sharing 2. If I was sharing 1, it would reflect that accordingly. You'll notice my client is checkmarked in here automatically. So I'm automatically selecting her because she has fields assigned to her in the documents. It tells me how many fields are assigned, which is awesome. And if I hover over her name here, it's even going to give me the email address that I'm sending the documents to. So I know exactly where those forms are going. It also defaults to a sharing permission of can sign. So I'm giving her permission to sign anything necessary on the document. If I click on that, I do have the ability to change it. So we have 4 document sharing permissions on dotloop. The first is view only. Pretty straightforward. If I just need someone to simply view the document or just have a copy of the form, I don't need them to make any changes or sign anything. Can sign is going to be your most common and most often used permission. It's what defaults for your clients when they have fields assigned, and it allows them to complete anything on the document assigned directly to them. Can fill in sign is also what you may share to your clients sometimes. It's going to be more reserved for things that they need to complete. So if they need to complete like a seller's disclosure or a rental application, something that's an entire document that you cannot complete for them or on their behalf that they need to do on their own. So can fill in sign is going to be perfect for that. The very last permission that you'll see here is can edit in private, and that is for agent to agent sharing. So if I was ready to share to the buying agent, I would want to share with can edit in private. Now I know this permission name is a little intimidating. It sounds like you're giving the other agent permission to fully edit a document that your client has already signed, and that is not the case. If your other agent, if the opposing agent tried to make any changes, so any changes in those blue outlined boxes that we saw on those interactive forms, it would wipe your client's signature. So if they try to make a text change, it is going to remove all active signatures on the document. So your client's never going to end up agreeing to something that they didn't actually agree to. Can edit in private is really just giving the other agent permission to prepare it for their client's signatures and send it out. One of the best things about this little drop down is if you can't remember all of these, because I know they're similar but different at the same time, if you hover over them, dotloop kind of gives you a nice little reminder bubble of when it's a good idea to send with these permissions. The other cool thing about this window is the custom message, so I can send her a custom message. If there were any instructions I needed to include regarding the document, anything I needed my client to pay attention to specifically, I could note that in here. It is going to appear in the body of the email my client will receive. I also have the option to attach a PDF to email here in the bottom left-hand corner. This is optional, but I tend to recommend to include that. It gives the clients or maybe the other agent the ability to easily download or print a document. Particularly if they aren't working with dotloop, you know, not every agent is tech savvy like you guys are and comfortable with working on an e-signature platform. So this gives them something they're familiar with. You know, everyone these days is familiar with downloading an attachment from an email. So I'm going to go ahead and check mark that box. And when I'm ready, I'm going to go ahead and hit share. dotloop tells me that these documents have been shared and we're now waiting on others. If I close that window and I hover over this option here that says waiting on others, it's going to tell me exactly what we're waiting on. And we're waiting on my client to sign the document. The last thing I want to take a look at before we jump over to the client signing experience is just the activity log. In the activity log, everything that occurs within the transaction is date and timestamped. So that includes adding clients to the loop. Here we go. Here's that entry. This is when I created the loop. When I viewed a document, etc. So everything is kept track of. My favorite entry, though, is the share document email entry because it really logs everything. It logs the name of the documents that I sent to my client, as well as who I sent it to, the email address, the sharing permission of just can sign, and the status of the email. And what that means specifically is that if I shared a document to my client's email and maybe I had the wrong email address, or even if my client has some really intense spam filters on their email, this status would say unsuccessful. So if my client is complaining about not receiving emails, this would be the first place I'd want to look, because then I can see if it was sent or if maybe there was something wrong and that email was unsuccessful. So I'm going to jump over to the client signing experience. This is a great time to ask any questions if you have any over anything that we've already covered. You have that question panel in the right-hand control panel that's on your screen there. Feel free to ask away. All right, it doesn't look like we have any questions, so we'll jump right into what the clients see when they're preparing to sign a document. So on your screen now, you should be able to see my client's inbox. We're looking at a Gmail inbox here. On my screen, I see that this email came directly from my agent and that there's some action needed. I need to sign 2 documents. So this is fantastic everywhere. It doesn't say anything about dotloop yet on this part. It's coming directly from my agent. If I open it up here, this is awesome. Here's my Agent Plus Realty logo. Again, I've shared 2 documents for you to review. I put them in the loop. Here's my custom message, which is fantastic. And then here's the property address of the transaction we're working on. So I know this is exactly what I'm looking for, and I'm ready to view the documents if I want to. If I scroll down here, this is the first mention of dotloop, which is fantastic. I like to point this out because this is the customer support number. So it's open to you guys as agents. They are here 7 days a week. Monday through Friday, they're here from 8 a.m. Eastern until midnight Eastern. And on the weekends, they're here from 8 to 8. Now, they're also available to your clients. So if your clients are having problems signing a document and you're not sure what's wrong, or maybe you're busy and can't get a hold of them at the moment, you can always have them call our support team. They're happy to answer any questions that your clients have. That's what they're here for. It also kind of explains what dotloop does. So if your clients are unsure of dotloop, it tells them exactly what that is right here. At the very bottom of the email, you'll notice the 2 attachments that I included. So if my clients needed to download or print, they could easily do so from this email. But I'm going to scroll back up here and I'm going to go ahead and click on View Documents. When I do so, I'm immediately taken into the forms. I could scroll through here and read these first if I wanted to, but I'm going to say I've already talked to my agent about what each of these documents are. I don't need to review them. I'm good to go. I'm ready to just start signing. So I'm going to come up here and click the Start Signing button. I'm going to scroll through. It takes me directly to the first initial field that I need here. I'm simply going to click here to Initial, and I'm taken to this Adopt Your Signature window. Again, this is another consistent window on dotloop. It is what you'll see when you're signing as an agent, what your admins are going to see when they're signing, and what your clients are going to see as well. So if I type in here, I can also update anything I need to. So if you notice, I'm adding my middle name and my middle initial. If your clients come to you and say, hey, Caroline, I need to actually add my middle name and my middle initial, you can let them know that they can do it here in this window. It's significantly easier if they make that correction rather than you making it and trying to send the document back out to them a second time. If your client would really like to draw their signature, they absolutely can. It's a little challenging on a mouse pad here, but if you're working on a mobile device, we are Android and iPhone friendly, so we have apps on both devices. If you're working on that mobile touchscreen device, your clients can easily sign on there. That looks kind of like a kindergartner, maybe a 5-year-old drew that, so I'm going to stick with the type signature for my client and go ahead and hit Adopt and Sign. So my client's just scrolling through here. It's really easy. You'll notice every time I click on a field, this fraction in the upper right, left-hand corner updates and increases as I move through the documents. You'll also notice I have an I'm done option here in the upper right-hand corner. I'm done is basically like saving the document, so it's saving everything that they've done so far. So on dotloop, we are never going to force your clients to sign everything that is assigned to them, the same way you wouldn't if they were in person in your office. You know, you wouldn't force them to sign everything if they did not want to. So that's their way out of the document and to send it back to you if they choose not to sign everything. The other times that they use I'm done is going to be if they're working on a disclosure or on a rental application or anything along those lines and need to save their changes and come back to the document later. They can hit I'm done and still access the form from that original share email. I'm going to keep just clicking through here. I'm almost done. I've got 2 fields left. And I'm finished signing. So once I'm done, I get this yellow banner here that then tells me in order to send this back to my agent, I need to click on Finish Signing. When I do so, I'm going to receive this pop-up window as the client, prompting me to create a dotloop account. I always like to let everyone know that this is totally optional for your clients to make an account. They do not have to. No one needs to have an account to sign on dotloop. If they don't have any interest in making an account, they can simply hit the X here in the upper right-hand corner. But this is also free for them. So if they choose to make a dotloop account, it's 100% free. They could sign in and access the documents at any time from anywhere. Again, totally up to you guys whether or not you encourage your clients to make those accounts. I'm going to deny that for right now, so I'm simply going to hit the X, and I'm going to go back over to my agent.loop account. So as an agent, I've received an email letting me know that my client has fully signed a document. I'm just going to go back to my loop here, and this waiting on others has now changed to signed. So these are now fully signed .loop documents. If I open one up, I can see that my client's initials are there, date and time stamped. So every initial and signature is date and time stamped on dotloop, as well as we collect the IP address from which the signature occurred. So if I keep scrolling, I can take a look at all of the initials on the signatures, but I also have this URL or hyperlink in the upper left-hand corner. This is our dotloop verification certificate. So if you're ever working with the bank or the government and they need to see your verification certificate for the transaction, you can access it on the top left-hand corner of every page of a signed document. These are document specific, so there's not going to be one for the entire loop, but you can easily print this out if you need to. You'll see each initial and signature has a dotloop specific ID, as well as here's the IP address and the security level of which the signature was obtained. So this means that my client accessed the document via email. If I signed it as an agent and I was in my personal dotloop account, it would say that it was password verified. And if I signed it in person, or I hosted an in-person signing, which we'll take a look at here toward the end of the training, it would say that it was verified in person. So that's pretty cool. We're going to cover next how to add PDF files and work with the documents that you're bringing in from outside of dotloop. While I prepare for that, do you guys have any questions? I'll go ahead and pause again briefly. Okay, again, looks like there's no questions, so we'll jump into adding those PDF files. In order to do so, I like to add an additional folder. I like to have an offer-specific folder. So in order to add that folder, I'm going to come here and hit Add Folder. It's going to make a new folder for me. I'm just going to rename this to Offer Folder. And then I'm going to go ahead and add my PDF files. So there are 3 ways to add these PDF files to the loop. The first is the drag and drop, and my personal favorite. So I have this file here saved to my desktop. I can just pick it up and, well, pick it up, there we go, and drag it into dotloop and place it right here. That's going to load for me no problem, which is awesome. I can also come back up here and click on Add Document and hit Browse. This is how I'll choose to add documents from my computer. So anything that I have saved in my Downloads folder or on my desktop even, maybe it's in my documents, I can easily add. Again, identical to attaching a file to an email, so something you guys should be super familiar with. I'm going to choose my document and hit Open. The other fantastic way to add a document to dotloop from outside of the template section is to add from email. So if I come over here and click on this option, this big long email address is generated for me automatically. And let's talk just a second about what this email address is. This email address is loop and folder specific. So what that means exactly is this email address is different than what the email address would be for the folder that I have below here labeled folder. It's so that dotloop knows which loop and folder the document you're sending in needs to go to. So it's unfortunately not going to do you any favors to save this to like your address book or anything along those lines. Otherwise, every time you send a document in, it's going to continuously go to the same loop in the same folder, which is a little annoying. So this is also automatically copied for me. That's what this little green bubble means. Email copy to clipboard. What that means is your computer basically just highlighted it and right-clicked and copied for you so you didn't have to. And then all you need to do is open up your email and locate the email that has that PDF attachment you're looking to send into dotloop. So if I click on that email, there's my PDF attachment here at the bottom. I'm simply going to just forward this in. So I'm going to come over here and hit forward. It's going to ask me who I'm sending this document to. I'm just going to right-click and paste. It's going to paste that big long email address for me, so I didn't have to worry about doing any of that on my own. And when I'm ready, I'm going to go ahead and hit send. Now, while this is sending, I also like to note it's not going to pull anything from the body of the email. It's just pulling the actual physical PDF attachment. So it does need to be a PDF file to get into dotloop. If I come over here and refresh my page, there is my third contract right here at the top. So now I have 3 of these. If I jump back over to my email, dotloop is fantastic because it also sends me a receipt that I emailed one file into the loop. If I take a look at that, it tells me the loop that I sent the document into, the email that I forwarded, this is the folder that the document went into the loop, and this is the name of the document in the system. If for any reason whatsoever a file could not make it into the system, you'll still get an email receipt back letting you know that 0 files were sent into the loop, and the file that was giving you problems would be attached here at the bottom of the email. So typically, when does that happen? Usually when people are trying to send .docs, so a Word document in, and not a PDF file. So you'll know exactly what's causing the problem when you take a look at that receipt. Now I have 3 versions of the same document in here. Of course, I really only need one. And this is where I like to mention that you guys cannot delete anything off of dotloop. You can only archive, but you can archive on 3 levels. So I could archive the actual document itself simply by coming over to these 3 vertical dots and hitting archive. I can also archive them in bulk, again, by checkmarking the boxes and hitting archive. It immediately hides them from my active view, but I always like to point out that since we don't delete and we only archive, you can get anything back. So if I click on show archive, it is going to bring back those documents that I did archive. I can also archive the entire folder. So if this whole offer falls through, I can archive that completely. Or like I said, if the entire transaction expires or the deal falls through, I can archive the entire loop. So I can archive there on 3 levels. Once I've archived everything that I've needed, I can go ahead and just open the document and take a look at what that looks like. And you'll notice, of course, my document is upside down. So someone, maybe the other agent or myself, scanned this in upside down. Maybe they scanned it in sideways. I've been there. I can't make my scanner work to save my life. I always scan it in upside down. So on dotloop, that's no problem. You can actually go ahead and rotate the document. So you have our navy blue bar here that gives you all of the different things you can do to the document. I'm going to come up here to File, and I'm just simply going to rotate this. I can rotate a page or an entire file. Since the whole file is upside down, I'm going to rotate the whole thing. And we're back here straight up and down. My client doesn't need to sign on their head. I could also split the document if I needed to. So if I scan in a really big disclosures packet or anything, multiple documents at once, I could upload them as one file and split them out accordingly so that I had each disclosure separated for my clients to sign independently. So now that I've rotated my document, I need to prepare it for signatures. You'll notice as I scroll through here at the bottom of every page, I have a space here for my seller's initials, but those are just empty boxes. So if I sent this to my client right now without doing anything to the form other than rotating it, my client would probably call me and say, Caroline, I can't do anything to this form. There's nowhere for me to sign. I don't understand. What am I missing? And they're not missing anything. What I would have done is I did not prepare it for signatures. So I need to go ahead and place in those fields that I need my client to initial or sign. In order to do so, I'm going to come up here to Add. And then this is a list of everything that I can add to the document. So I'm going to add initials. When I click that, I get a blue box that follows my mouse around as I do, figure eights, and I make some circles here on my screen. I just drag that box down to where it needs to go, and I left click to place that. Now there are 2 things you want to do anytime you place a field. The first is you want to resize so that it's the size you want it to be. In order to resize, you come over to this colored in triangle in the bottom right-hand corner. and just shrink or expand accordingly. Once it's the size you want it to be, you also want to make sure it's assigned appropriately. So right now, if I come up here to the left-hand corner, you'll see that this designates that it's assigned to anyone. I don't need anyone to sign it. I need just my client to. So I'm going to click Assign Field, and I'm going to choose my client's name out of this list. Now that I've done so, it does put in some initials there for me, but I like to note that this is not you doing anything on behalf of your client. This is just letting you know that, okay, when my client gets this document, they're going to be able to complete it. It is assigned to them. Now I can scroll through and repeat that process here on page 2, come up, hit add signature, or I'm sorry, add initials, bring that down, but that's a little time consuming because then I have to resize it. And what if it's not the same size as all of the other initial boxes? That would drive me crazy. So one of the awesome things about dotloop and PDF files is that we have over here in the right-hand margin these keyboard hotkeys or keyboard shortcuts. This is just a simple click of the keyboard here, so I'm going to follow the instructions to copy this field. Command-Shift-C, since I'm working on a Mac. If I scroll down to the next place, I need these initials here at the bottom of page 2. Follow the instructions to paste. Command-Shift-V. I place my box. It is the same size, and it is still assigned to my client. Now, I can fly through here, which is awesome. Taking me no time whatsoever. So what may have taken me, a minute to get through is now taking me 30 seconds. Like I said, we're all about saving you guys time. You've probably also noticed that at the bottom of every page, it's calling for a date and time field. Personally, I think that's a little redundant since we already provide that on all of our signatures and initials, but a lot of associations and states still require that anyway. If you need to add that field, again, we do have a date-specific field, or you could just add a text field, totally up to you. I like the date field because it does have that calendar option. So when I place that field here, it prompts me to go ahead and choose a date from the calendar. If I do so, pretty standard format. If I don't like that and I would rather everything be spelled out, I can still type into that box. Or my biggest thing is that maybe I don't want to pick the date and I really would rather my client do it, right? Because if I choose today's date, which is the 9th, but my client doesn't sign the document until tomorrow, which is the 10th, those dates are not going to align, and that would drive me crazy. So I'd really rather my client complete this field. It's really easy to do so. You just click into the box. Even though it's bringing down the calendar, you don't have to choose anything. We're going to go up here and we're actually going to assign the field directly to the client. This is going to gray out the box, and if I hover my mouse over it, I get that universal no sign. It's not going to let me type into that box. dotloop now knows that my client, Carol, is going to be the only person who can complete this field. If I do this in error or choose to date the field on my own, I simply just click on the box again, come up here in the upper left-hand corner. I can either assign it to myself, to no one, or to anyone, and I'll be able to type into that field. The last thing that I need to add then is just my signature field for my client. Again, I'm going to place the field. I'm going to resize, and I'm going to assign accordingly. Awesome. So I'm good to go. I'm going to go ahead and save this. And rather than sharing, my client is actually in the room with me. So Carol is actually here, and we're going to assign it in person. So how do you do that? You place everything you need, come back up to the top of the document and save it. You're going to come over here to More, and you're going to go down here to Host an in-person signing. It's going to give you everyone who has an email address with their name in the loop. This is where I like to point out that everyone does need to have their own independent email. So couples cannot share email addresses, married couples, regular couples, anyone. You do need to have your own independent email address to sign on dotloop. So those are going to be listed here. There's my client. I'm going to choose her and hit continue. And then it asks me to go ahead and hand my computer over. So I'm picking up my computer. I'm putting it in front of Carol. She's going to go ahead and click begin signing. And the signing experience is identical to what we saw when we shared via email. She clicks start signing, clicks here. We get the adopt your signature window. This time it did remember that she updated her middle name, which is great. She's going to go ahead and hit adopt and sign, and boom, she is flying through the form. Going through there, it does stop at the date field, so she can date that accordingly. She can then scroll to the next field, or she can come over here and hit next, and she's done. She hits finish signing. She's like, nah, I'm not going to make a dotloop account, and she hands me back my computer. So now as the agent, I'm ready to go back into the loop and do a couple of other things, but if I hit the back button, you'll notice dotloop actually assigns you all the way out of your dotloop account when you host an in-person signing. And that's just because we don't want you doing anything on behalf of your client, so we make sure we sign you out all the way. I can just open back up my loop, and there's my signed document, which is awesome. Now, the very last thing I'm going to do in a transaction is I'm going to submit this for review. So I have all of my signatures. I'm done. I'm going to go ahead and send this over to my admin for approval. So I'm going to check mark the box. I'm going to come up here and hit submit to review. Check mark the box in this window, rather, not on the page where I see my list of documents. I'm going to make sure I choose the appropriate review type, and then I'm going to hit submit. Once I hit submit, my admin is going to be notified via email that I've submitted some documents for their approval for them to go ahead and take a look at and then approve accordingly. So that is everything I had for you guys today on the agent side of dotloop. I'm also going to pause here for just a couple of minutes. We have a ton of time left. I'm going to show you a couple of support resources as well as answer any questions that you have. So if you have some questions, go ahead and send them my way, and we can walk through anything that seemed unclear you'd like me to cover again. All right, and as questions are coming in, I do just want to show you some of our support resources. So I'm going to show you what our support website looks like, how easy it is to get to, and also our support phone number that's listed on the account. So on your dotloop page, no matter where you are, here I'm on our Loops homepage. If I scroll down to the bottom right-hand corner, I have our call. Here is my member ID. You want to keep that handy because it's going to help you cut any lines that there are. So if there's a line, since you guys are premium VIPs, you're going to jump that line, you're going to go right to the top, and you're going to be helped before anybody else. So you want to make sure you have that handy. Our help center here, if you click on that, is going to kick you over to our support website. 70 to 75% of every reason you might call into the support line can be answered here on the support website. So if you don't want to talk to anyone, or if you don't want to wait on hold, if there is a hold line, or if you're kind of just going on the go, you can come here. This is a great place to also brush up on some training. So we have some videos, we have some regularly scheduled webinars, so this was specific to your office. But if you'd like to get on any in the future, we do have them weekly. You can find the schedule here. If you wanted to know, for example, maybe all of the hotkeys that we have, you just search for some keywords, and you're going to find a couple of articles regarding that information. So these are all of the different hotkeys we have sorted on based if you're using a Mac or a PC. And it's really awesome. Maybe I forget the share permissions. If I click on that, we have a whole article that breaks down with a video when you want to share with each permission specifically. So that's really cool as well. It's a great resource for you guys. I would totally recommend checking it out. We also have here our sample loop. This is just literally a sample transaction. It walks you through everything. If I open that up here, it has some completed documents, has some dummy people I can practice sharing to. You'll notice these pulsing green circles everywhere. Maybe I don't remember what everything is. If I click on this here, it's going to tell me exactly what I can find if I click on that option, which is way cool. Once I do that, it does disappear, but you can practice sharing documents, auto-filling, sending things out, and all that good stuff before you actually share anything to your real clients. So any questions at all? Everything seemed pretty straightforward for right now. It always takes just a little bit of practice to get used to it. So don't be afraid to jump in there and start working as soon as you want. Like I said, I have recorded today's session. I am going to send it to John so that he can provide it to you guys to review at any point if you need to. And then maybe he and I can connect if you guys are interested. Maybe we can schedule another training maybe a couple of weeks we could do a question and answer session with me once you guys have been working on it a ton. You run into some commonly asked questions, we can tackle any of those. All right, awesome. So it looks like we don't have any questions. I am going to let you all go. I know your time is valuable, so I definitely don't want to keep you any longer than I need to. I'll go ahead and end this. Thank you so much for joining me. It was my pleasure training you guys on the listing side of dotloop today. Oh, looks like we do have a question. Go ahead and fire away. Can you change your email? Absolutely. So I would double check. I don't know specifically what email address you're working with right now, but let me walk you through how easy it is to change the email. So if you notice and you collaborate with John, you guys notice that the email address that he provided to me is not maybe what you would like to use as your primary. You can easily change that, no problem. You're going to come up here to where your initials are in the upper right-hand corner. You're going to come down to My Account. This is where information about you is stored. You could add a profile picture here if you wanted to add a photo of yourself, license number, some company information, all that good stuff is saved here. To change your email, you're going to come over here to the settings. Scroll all the way down to the bottom of the page. There's an option to change email. You just need to provide the email address that you would like to change it to and hit save. What that's going to do is it's going to send a verification email to your email. You just need to verify your identity and that's going to save it over. You'll probably notice if you jump right back over to your dotloop account, it's going to retain your old email. You'll just need to sign out and sign back in to see that change reflect on your account. Can I practice and delete everything? So you can absolutely make some test loops. I 100% recommend making a couple of test loops, uploading documents, maybe old transactions and things along those lines. We don't have a delete option, so you cannot delete anything that you've done, but you can archive it. So if you make a couple of test loops, and then those are transactions obviously that you're not going to utilize, you can absolutely archive them. It would hide them from this view here, so you would not see them anymore on your home screen unless you called for them. Any other questions? All right, awesome. I will let you go. It was my pleasure. If you guys think of any other questions at all, please call our support team. They are here until midnight tonight. They know everything. I know they're dotloop geniuses, so don't hesitate to reach out. And I will probably speak to you guys soon. I'll get this recording over to John, and have a great weekend.